Over the past year, terroristic events are seemingly on the rise. Whether it's the Cybertruck Forever Sleep fireworks show outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas, the Bourbon Street Attack in New Orleans, or the multiple assassination attempts of a former president, anything and everything seems to be on the table. These events that occurred many miles apart may seem totally unconnected, but there is one piece of connecting history between each attacker. They all frequented a massive military installation on the east coast of the United States. Fort Bragg, now known as Fort Liberty, is a military complex near Fayetteville, North Carolina that spans over 251 square miles, with a population nearing 100,000, making it one of the world's biggest military installations. Fort Bragg has been known for training some of the military's best, such as the 82nd Airborne Division, which is also our nation's global response force. They're capable of mobilizing anywhere in the world in less than 36 hours to begin performing combat operations. The Green Berets also train here, along with most of the other U.S. Special Forces, ranking this fort as one of the top military training facilities in the world. But Fort Bragg has also been known for tragedy. According to a DoD report, Fort Bragg has lost 31 soldiers in 5 years due to overdoses. This is the highest number of any installation in the United States. The fort is also famous for the Green Ramp disaster, which was a mid-air collision in 1994 that subsequently caused a ground collision at Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina. It killed 24 members of the U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division who were preparing for an airborne training operation. And as of 2024, this incident has the largest number of ground fatalities for an accidental crash of an aircraft on U.S. soil. Being that Fort Liberty is one of the largest U.S. Army installations, it's not uncommon that somebody has served there or frequented there in their military career. But what is concerning is allegedly traveling there up to 147 times over a 4-year period while not serving for any sector of the United States military in any capacity. At 1:59 a.m. on September 15, 2024, a man named Ryan Routh would allegedly take a position at Trump's golf course and wait for the former president to play a round of golf later that day. Luckily, he was spotted by a Secret Service agent at around 1:31 p.m. who fired at Routh, causing him to drop his weapon and flee in a nearby vehicle. After the shot was fired, Trump was escorted off the course by his Secret Service protective detail. And about an hour later at 2:22 p.m., Routh was arrested on Interstate 95 in Martin County as the potential suspect and later charged with 2 offenses. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and possession of a firearm with the serial number removed. Ryan Wesley Routh was born February 18, 1966 in Guilford County, North Carolina. On April 2, 1991, Routh fought and chased a suspected rapist around an office building who was taken into custody later that evening and was sentenced the following year to life in prison. For confronting the suspect, Routh was honored as a super citizen and awarded a law enforcement Oscar a few months after the chase by the Greensboro chapter of the International Union of Police Associations. But a little over 10 years later, Routh was no longer acting as a hero. On December 15, 2002, he was convicted of possessing a firearm, resisting, delaying and obstructing law enforcement, and driving with a license revoked. He had been pulled over while driving, and during the traffic stop, he put his hand on a gun and then drove to a nearby roofing business where he barricaded himself inside. But his crime spree didn't start or end in 2002. Prior to his alleged assassination attempt on Trump, Routh had over 100 criminal charges filed against him throughout his life. With a lengthy criminal history, why would Routh want to frequent a military base? Could it be that he had special interest in military activities? He has claimed that in 2022 he flew to Ukraine to join the army months after Russia's invasion. Although his fellow comrades, like Chelsea Walsh, a traveling nurse who had met Routh in Ukraine, said she viewed him as a threat to others and a ticking time bomb, prompting her to report his behavior to the FBI upon her return. While being interested in the military could be the case, some believe there is something much more sinister at hand. Fort Bragg, North Carolina is home to several psychological operation groups, otherwise known as PSYOPS. Most notably the 4th Psychological Operations Group Airborne and the 8th Psychological Operations Group Airborne. These PSYOP units primarily focus on developing and executing psychological operations strategies to influence foreign audiences by analyzing their motivations, vulnerabilities, and cultural context, aiming to sway their opinions and behaviors in support of the U.S. military objectives. In layman's terms, the PSYOPs at Fort Bragg focus on influencing the thoughts and behaviors of foreign audiences. Some say these psychological operations could be a reason why Ryan Routh frequented the fort so many times. It is worth noting that Ryan Routh's GPS records are not public, which means the claim that he has been to Fort Bragg over 147 times in the past 5 years has yet to be substantiated. However, Ryan Routh has the least notable connection to Fort Bragg. Fast forwarding about 3 months later, on January 1st, 2025, Two separate attacks occurred over 1,700 miles apart. The first of which, a man named Samsud bin Jabbar would rent a Ford F-150 Lightning and veer down the famous Bourbon Street in New Orleans. He would rapidly accelerate into the crowded street, killing at least 14 people and injuring dozens more, before crashing, exiting his vehicle, and firing on the crowd of people around him. After a short shootout with the New Orleans Police Department, Jabbar was struck by police fire and declared dead at the scene. 2 police officers were hit by gunfire, along with at least 2 civilians. Jabbar also fashioned 2 homemade IEDs that were never set off due to human error. Samsud bin Jabbar was a 42-year-old U.S. Army veteran, brought up in Beaumont, a city in eastern Texas near the Louisiana border. According to a now-removed LinkedIn profile, Jabbar worked in various roles in the U.S. Army before he was discharged in 2015. He was deployed in Afghanistan from February 2009 to January 2010. Jabbar was then stationed with the 1st 82nd Infantry Provisional at Fort Bragg from June 2011 to January 2015. Could it be while Jabbar was stationed at Fort Bragg he was involved in psychological operations? There's no substantial evidence to support this claim. This also seems unlikely seeing as Jabbar stopped service in 2015, meaning barring GPS information that is unavailable to the public, he likely has had no interaction with the fort since. However, another soldier, Matthew Livelsberger, was currently serving in the military until January 1st, 2025, when he drove to Trump's Las Vegas hotel and parked a rented Tesla Cybertruck mere feet away from the hotel's entrance and detonated it. The Cybertruck was rigged with homemade explosives. The truck appeared to contain gasoline, camp fuel canisters, and large firework mortars, along with a loaded Desert Eagle 50 caliber handgun, which police say he used to shoot himself in the head simultaneously as the explosion started. Now, if anybody's ever played the popular game Counter-Strike, you would know that the Desert Eagle essentially deletes the human head. If it were true that Matthew had shot himself simultaneously at the beginning of the explosion, the first few frames revealing the fireball outlining Matthew's face would outline a much more gruesome scene if he truly had shot himself at the same time. And for those who haven't seen what a Desert Eagle can do to the human skull, here's a video.
This skull right in front of me.
All right, hold on. Let me switch to slow-mo.
Another thing internet detectives found very interesting about the Matthew Livelsberger crime scene in Vegas was that his passport and government ID were unaffected by the fire. As seen here, the passport is laying on top of a bunch of melted debris. Being that a passport is made out of paper, albeit sometimes laminated and not your standard paper, should be flammable and should not have survived the fire. And as if it couldn't get any worse, various people have reported Matthew changing his signal safety number just before the explosion, and then his photo and safety number changed once again after the explosion. For those of you who don't know what Signal is a free and secure open source messaging app that allows users to send messages, make calls, and share media. Signal uses end-to-end encryption to keep conversations private. This means that no one, not even Signal, can read the messages or listen into calls, which is most likely why Matthew used this app to message Sean Ryan, who backs up the claim of Matthew changing his Signal safety number before and after the explosion.
And I want to give context on one of the things. I saw this going around on social media. People were saying that his Signal chat, his safety number changed. I don't know if you saw this on X, but it was all over X. Apparently his safety number on Signal changed. He messaged me on Signal. So I went on there to look myself to see if it changed, and sure enough, it had. On January 1st, after the bombing, after he was dead, his safety number changed. That's all he sent me. He said initial contact, and I gave a thumbs up, and his safety number changed at the bottom.
Look at that.
That's after he's dead. I don't know enough about Signal to know why that would happen. Somebody has to have manipulated that, though, and messed with it.
Unlike the previous 2 attackers, Matthew Livelsberger was still in the army and was actually stationed at Fort Bragg at the same time as Jabbar. And they both served together in Afghanistan in 2009. But Matthew Livelsberger wanted to blow the whistle on an operation 10 years later in Afghanistan in 2019, along with some of the other technology that the government was hiding from its citizens. He had a manifesto that was sent out via email in the days leading up to his attack. It reads as follows: "In case I do not make it to my decision point or onto the Mexico border, I am sending this now. Please do not release this until 1st of January and keep my identity private until then. First off, I am not under duress or hostile influence or control. My first car was a 2006 black Ford Mustang V6 for verification. What we have been seeing with these drones is the operational use of gravitic propulsion systems, powered aircraft by most recently China, in the East Coast, but throughout history, the US. Only we in China have this capability. Our OPSCEN, short for Operation Center, location for this activity is in the box below. China has been launching them from the Atlantic from submarines for years, but this activity recently has picked up. As of now, it's just a show of force, and they're using it similar to how they use the balloon for Signet and ISR, which are also a part of the integrated comm system. There are a dozen of those balloons in the air at any given time. The so what is because of the speed and stealth of these unmanned aircraft. They're the most dangerous threat to national security that has ever existed. They basically have unlimited payload capacity and can park it over the White House if they wanted. It's checkmate. USG, United States government, needs to give the history of this. How are we employing it and weaponizing it? How China is employing it and what the way forward is. China is poised to attack anywhere on the East Coast. He then goes on to explain how he's been followed for over a week now from likely Homeland Security or the FBI, and how they're looking to move in on him, but believes they wouldn't because they knew he was armed and had a massive VBED. Short for Vehicle-Borne Improvised Explosive Device. I've been trying to maintain a very visible profile and have kept my phone, and they are definitely digitally tracking me, he continues. The final part of his email details information about multiple operations in Afghanistan in 2019. He talks about a cover-up by the DoD, DEA, and CIA, and how he conducted targeting for strikes on 125 buildings that resulted in massive civilian casualty. The information about the operation Matthew was divulging was written about in a UN report, where they found the alleged drug facilities were not lawful targets, and the airstrikes caused significant civilian casualties. The UN verified 39 civilian casualties, among them 14 children and 1 woman, from multiple airstrikes on more than 60 sites that the United States Forces Afghanistan, US-4A, identified as drug production facilities in Bakwa district and in parts of the neighboring Nimraz province. Using other military acronyms, he then vets himself and the email, and ends his manifesto with, "You need to elevate this to the media so we avoid a world war, because this is a mutually assured destruction situation." He finally vets himself just a little bit further with his LinkedIn and program accomplishments along with the access that he has. In this email, Matthew references a very specific OPSCEN, or Operation Center, that when entered into Google Maps leads you directly to Area 51. Given his email manifesto, you can infer that he's referring to the gravitic propulsion systems being researched at Area 51. With there being so many questions surrounding Matthew's death, it's hard to know what truly happened. Some say Matthew might even still be alive. Nowhere at any point in any of the messages that Matthew sent anybody did he seem suicidal. In fact, after renting the Cybertruck, he texted his ex-wife, who had only divorced him 5 days earlier, for cheating the day after Christmas, in a seemingly cheerful mood. Could it be he was masking his emotions from the divorce, and had already come to his conclusion with a final plan, thus giving him relief? Or did he simply want to get to Mexico, as stated in his manifesto? And why was he trying to get to Mexico? Was he trying to escape those agencies he recently shed light on? And perhaps maybe while at Fort Bragg, he was programmed into a sleeper agent who was activated when the time was right. Okay, that one was a little ridiculous, guys, but finding out that him and Jabbar served at Fort Bragg at the same time was definitely an interesting fact, along with a ton of the other stuff I found out while researching for this video. I would love to hear what some of you guys think in the comments below. This video was a ton of fun to research and make. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a totally different style of video than anything else on my channel, but if you guys want to see more of it, please leave a like below. Give me a comment about what you think is going on at Fort Bragg, or even if you guys want to watch a video specifically about Matthew Livelsberger, because I know I covered him a lot, but I covered him in a different way than I covered the other 2 attackers. It's kind of because I fell down a rabbit hole while researching him, and his death is honestly really interesting to me. So if you guys want to watch a video about that, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys for watching. Peace.